I have the great pleasure to introduce Antje Keppler, who is the director of the BioHub of Eurobioimaging, ERIC, hosted by the EMBL in Heidelberg, Germany. She leads an international team to coordinate and operate the pan-European research infrastructure services for biological imaging in Eurobioimaging. She is currently the chair, elected again for the ERIC Forum, where 30 European research infrastructure consortia come together to represent their voice and interest towards European key stakeholders. Antje also is the coordinator of the International GBI Network. Well, you all know what that is, which promotes open science by now 64 countries across all continents. Antje studied biochemistry at the Ruhr University in Bochum before she moved to Lausanne for conducting her PhD in chemical biology. And when I asked Antje earlier what is for you the essence of this session today, she said, it's not an academic exercise, this session. This is really about how you relate and how you take what is presented here, how you take that to your personal environment, to your personal engagements with stakeholders. And with that, it's a great pleasure to have Antje presenting.
Thanks a lot, Ben, for this very kind introduction. And actually, with this, we are kind of done and could go to the coffee break. Yeah, so the title of this session is Sustaining Infrastructure Through Stakeholder Engagement. And when I looked at this title, I thought, oh my God, this is my job every single day. So let's talk about it. The spoiler here is, when I'm done with it next 10 minutes, you won't have the perfect answer how you will talk to your funder afterwards. But I'm trying to give you a few examples, and hopefully you find them inspiring to look at your own infrastructure and then take a new angle on how you tell the narrative. Because I'm very passionate about publicly funded research infrastructures, and I'm personally entirely convinced that these are not just infrastructures where some scientists can do advanced research, but that they are really strategic assets for our societies. And why am I so convinced about this? So why do we need publicly funded research infrastructures? So when you look at this slide, you see earthquakes, you see volcano eruptions, you see tsunamis. And then you switch on the news in the evening and you get the information on this, or maybe your phone goes off and you get the alert. But where do the news get the news from? How do they get that kind of data? And this is already the moment where publicly funded research infrastructures come in and play a key role. And for example, in Europe, we have the EPOS ERIC, which is the research infrastructure that brings together Europe's earthquake, volcano, and geohazard monitoring infrastructures. And its mission is very vital for us. So it's about to understand the Earth's processes so that the societies can prepare and protect themselves. And for me, this is the perfect example. If you talk to a ministry, well, research infrastructure, we really should fund more this or that, like defense. But we do need these kind of monitoring infrastructures, because by this we can turn scientific data into preparedness, safety, and really support our societies in emergency situations. So many of us have been traveling from other continents to Montreal, and I was lucky. I had the seat at the window, so I could look out of the window when I was not looking at my inbox. And there was the ocean, and it was really marvelous. So I really like watching the waves, but I have really not a lot of understanding of what's happening beneath the waves. And I assume that many of us are rather blind on what's happening there. And the oceans cover 70% of the surface of the Earth, and they represent 90% of the living resources. And especially now with the climate change, it is so important that we better understand how the seas and the oceans work, and that we really also understand their dynamics, because these can range from episodic events such as a tsunami, or very slow trends such as the warming up or the diminishing of the oxygen level. And this is key for all of humanity to understand and to base our decisions on. And again, I bring an example here from Europe where we have EMSO ERIC. And EMSO-ERIC has not received funding to build new monitoring systems, but it is now bringing together under one umbrella existing infrastructures from many countries across Europe to increase the collaboration and working together on the monitoring of the oceans to preserve the ocean's health and resources. So together they are exploring and monitoring and understanding the phenomena that are happening within and below the oceans by collecting continuously the multidisciplinary data, which is important to understand for climate, ecosystems, and geohazards. And they are transforming these observations not only just in dry data through their data portal, but really into knowledge for the sustainability and fact-based decision-making by our politicians. The third and last example that I'm bringing here now is Europe imaging. And I think all of you know the saying, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And you might be wondering, why is she saying this when she's showing us the slide with imaging technologies and the different scales that they are providing? But I think this is really what Europe imaging is trying to achieve. So for those of you who might not know it, Europe imaging is the European research infrastructure for biological and biomedical imaging technologies. And we are providing now for 5 years a space where researchers can come and get access to all of these 120 different imaging technologies across 250 sites. So they have the possibilities seamlessly to come to us and ask, okay, I need this technology, that technology, and also another technology to facilitate the multimodal imaging as well as enabling translational research. And I think what is especially about Europe imaging is what you have to understand is we never got a single penny to buy one microscope or one MRI. We are only got a bit of funding to pay for a dozen positions at Europe imaging to coordinate the access to these imaging services. So the investments had been made by the country, so about 1 billion euros or 1.5 billion euros by now in the past 5-6 years, those are local investments by the countries that took place. But the countries had the choice to keep this isolated, siloed, so every single imaging facility has their brand new microscope and it stays where it is, or to put just a little bit of 0.2% extra funding on top, like a sprinkle, to coordinate the access, so that now all researchers, including all of you, can in principle access all of these investments that have been made before. So there are different ways to look at the research infrastructures. And as I said, we need publicly funded research infrastructures. And they are really society's shared assets because they're not just there for scientists to have some fun and do their advanced research, but they're really platforms and the outcome, the data, benefits everyone. And it's sustaining these infrastructures into the future that helps us to protect the past public investments coming from the taxpayers. And it's our job here to tell the taxpayers every day why this is important. And we really have to consider the narrative, how we are approaching this. Personally, I don't like so much this approach of who's dying when you start your narrative. I think there are more positive ways to make your pitch, but it's probably something where you have to really consider how can my audience relate to it and practice with your family. Research infrastructures transform knowledge into societal value, and this is really what we have to bring across with our best friends or with our uncle at the next meeting. Because research infrastructures can help the scientists to turn discoveries into better health, greater resilience to global challenges, innovation in industry, and also preservation of cultural heritage. And none of this is for granted. So until very recently, I thought, yeah, sure, that happened 50 years ago, it will happen 50 years from now. I don't know. So I think it's really up to us to make these points. And because we are facing not so easy times for public research, open science, and research infrastructures, in the next few slides, and then I will finish, I want to suggest how we can make research infrastructure stronger. And one example is ERIC Forum. So as Ben already mentioned, I had the honor for the past 3 years and still for another 2 months to come to be the chair of ERIC Forum. And this is another bottom-up organization. Since 2011, there have been 32 ERICs being launched in Europe. ERIC stands for European Research Infrastructure Consortium, and it's a new legal model that helps countries to come together, and I'll come back to that in the next slide. But what you look at here in this slide is the ecosystem of 32 ERICs from across all the different scientific domains. So there are ERICs in the social sciences, environmental sciences, physics, astronomy, environmental sciences. And while we have been all created by ourselves, federating existing national infrastructures, we are also now working together. The legal tool of ERIC, that was helping actually our countries to work together. Until 15 years ago, there was not such a legal tool. So if countries wanted to do something together across borders, they had to launch an international organization such as CERN or such as EMBL. It took more than 1 decade to do that. And it was a very slow process. Parliaments had to prove everything, and the scientists never got where they wanted to be. So the European Commission helped the communities and the countries with this new legal tool, which is now quite established. It still takes a decade, but I think we know how to do it. So this is the top-down approach, how countries can now work together. But bottom-up, there's the ERIC forum. So we have the 32 ERICs. We have quite a few challenges how to get those ERICs started, and we had questions like how to hire staff, how to maintain staff, where to get our pension in the future, how to talk to our funders about the sustainability. So it's very similar to what we're doing here. And in the ERIC Forum, we are now coming together, we are fostering our visibility, we are working together on our challenges, and every other week we're also going to Brussels to talk to the European Commission and shaping the European science policy, such as the new strategy for research and technology infrastructures. So our voices now from the 32 infrastructures across all scientific domains is being heard. And that, I think, is the first time, at least at the European level, that this is taking place for research infrastructures. So the key take-home is the word together. So together we can really make a huge difference for the research infrastructures. For research, it's not only about talking about legal models and funding, it's also establishing workflows of complementary research infrastructure services. For example, now we are able to support research that needs life sciences and social sciences, or environmental sciences and physics. We have the address book, we can call each other and make that happen. And thereby we can enable new knowledge by increasing interoperability of scientific data. And then, of course, for the societies, we can help to foster further this research ecosystem in a trusted environment, increasing thereby the sustainability and resilience of this research ecosystem, and thereby raising broadest awareness for the essential role of open science for the well-being of our planet. And I think for me, the best example is really you guys, Global Bioimaging. Thank you so much for being here.